Welcome back to Intro to Philosophy. I'm Tom, and in this unit, we will get into our first metaphysical debate and look at one side of that debate. The debate is about the existence of free will, the free will and determinism debate. So, this debate is about whether free will actually exists. So, when we're talking about free will, we're talking about our ability to make choices and decisions and do things of our own accord, right? So my free will supposedly allows me to talk to you right now. I think of what to say and I say it to you. I think that I want to raise my hand and I do it. You think about registering for a class and then you do it. So on and so forth. The choices we make. The two sides of this debate are, on the one hand, libertarianism, which is metaphysical libertarianism, not political libertarianism. And that is those who believe that there is free will, that at least some of our actions are done of our own accord, right? That we'll talk about next. But in this unit, we will talk about determinism, which is the opposing position. And that is the view that all of our so-called actions are not done of our free will, and they are all determined by previous events. Okay, so the biggest thing, if you get anything out of this video, it is that the determinist position believes that there is no free will at all, right? And that's a very radical position, and you really need to grasp that in its full capacity to understand what determinism is. So the determinist thinks that we have no choice. We have the appearance of choice. We think we do things, but really our bodies are just like any other natural object. And they are just prompted by other events, right? And so anything that you think you do of your own accord, you don't, right? According to the determinist. You don't think for yourself. You don't act for yourself. You don't make choices, decisions. You don't deliberate about things. That's the determinist position. Okay. Now, you might think, why would you ever want such a position? Well, here's the motivation for it. Our current scientific outlook is one in which we tend to think of a discipline like physics as giving us the fundamental building blocks of the universe, right? We're talking about atoms and electrons and so on. We're talking about the stuff that everything is made of, right? And according to modern physics, everything functions based on what's called efficient causality. Efficient causality is a particular kind of causality, but it's also kind of the most popular one that we tend to think about when we say cause and effect, right? Efficient causality has to do with event A causing event B to occur. If you want to understand why event B happened, you look at event A, right? So if you want to know why a volcano erupted, you look at the things that preceded it, the events that preceded that. If you want to know why an apple fell from a tree, you look at the events that preceded it, right? You want to know why a house caught fire, you look at the things that led up to it. And this is what I will call a mechanistic worldview, right? That the world kind of functions like a machine that you wind up and then just set in motion, and then things just happen one after the other. And on this view, another way to look at it is kind of like a billiard ball view of the world, right? If you want to know why the 8 ball went into the corner pocket, you have to look at the way the cue ball hit it. And if you want to look at the way, you want to know why the cue ball went the way it did, is you look at the cue that hit it, and so on and so forth, right? Now, if you have that kind of worldview, and that's the way the world works, then that causes a big problem for free will. because it looks like everything's kind of working in a natural order according to natural laws like gravity and the laws of thermodynamics and so on and so forth. And then out of nowhere, the human brain just makes things happen, right? You just have a thought and then you just decide to go to the store. You just, turn the wheel of your car and and go in a certain direction that you weren't supposed to, or whatever, right? Um, um, that looks very mysterious and that looks like it's out of the natural order. So determinism is motivated by the idea that our actions, human actions, have to fit into the natural order according to the laws of physics and so on and so forth, just like any other object. And if that's the case, then it looks like the kind of causality you want there is efficient causality, right? Um, so, um, so that's really the motivation for thinking that free will does not exist. Now, um, again, like I said, this is a really strong claim because it means that there is no free will. It means that you don't have any choices, that you've never had any choices, that I've never had any choices, that no human being in the history of the world has ever made a choice, right? Because you don't want that random causation to kind of come into your worldview. You want your understanding of the universe and natural laws to be completely like universal in scope, right? Um, Now, of course, when it comes to determinism, the main hurdle is what you would call the phenomenological aspect of free will. And phenomenology has to do with your feeling, your experience, right? So it seems determinism seems odd because it seems like I do make choices. I have that experience of making choices, right? And everyone that I know reports that they have choices, and it seems really fundamental to our understanding of ourselves and other human beings, this experiential component. And so if you look at the de Holbach article, his thesis is pretty simple, right? He thinks natural sciences are right about the world. We are natural objects, so our actions are just events like anything else. Um, and they can be explained just like any other phenomenon. But he takes the time to look at the appearance and the experience of self-determination and the experience of free will that we think that we have. And he spends a lot of time trying to explain that away. He explains away things like when it seems like we're deliberating, right? Because deliberation can't exist if everything is determined. Um, so he gives an explanation for why that's the case, that we feel like we're entertaining two options and then choosing one. And he actually thinks we're just really getting pushed and pulled in different way with different desires, and one of them kind of wins out. And he gives other examples of where we think, we're making choices and really that our instincts are winning out in one way or another. And so, what I would encourage you to do is to look and really focus on those explanations and press on them a bit. Is de Holbach really successful in explaining away our sense of free will and our sense of making decisions? Is it accurate enough? Um, on the other hand, the free will, the people who are advocates for free will, metaphysical libertarians, really have a lot on their plate as well to explain about what free will really is, and uh, and why it's not as mysterious as it might appear, and how one can reconcile it with our modern scientific worldview. The other thing I'll lastly mention here is when it comes to the motivation for determinism is to realize how much our modern scientific mechanistic worldview really serves us, right? It gives us an immense amount of predictability. when it comes to the world around us, and we use that so much, right? So much technology is based on this kind of mechanistic, deterministic worldview. Lots of advances in medicine, all kinds of things we have done have really, I mean, this mechanistic worldview works for us in lots and lots of ways, right? And so there's also the promise that it could work for us when it comes to predicting human behavior or controlling human behavior and all these kinds of things. So anyways, that's where I'm going to leave it for right now. But we will look at the other side of this debate in the next video, and take your time with the reading and really think it through. Okay, thanks.